Brother,
How you doing,
how you
man?
doing,
I'm
man?
very
I'm very
excited to be
excited to
here
be here in Arlington
today.
today.
How's it
How's it
going?
going? It's exciting. It's an exciting day. How'd you like that little bit of Irish jig in honor of St. Patrick's Day?
Absolutely
Absolutely
loved it,
loved it,
man.
man.
Well,
Well,
it's a
it's a
great
great
day.
day.
It's a
It's
great
a
day in
great day in
Arlington.
Arlington.
It's a
It's a
great day
great
in
day
our
in our
podcast,
podcast,
and I'm
and I'm
feeling
feeling
absolutely
absolutely
fantastic.
fantastic. Yes, it is. You're looking good. It is great to look over the monitor and see you live because this is after 34, well, after 33 episodes, we finally got the chance to do it together. And that's been one of our goals from the very beginning. And so I want to thank you for making the trip up here and it just happened to land, on this episode. What do you think about that?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I
I
think,
think
out of all this year, almost a year now, right? That's going to be our 1 year anniversary with our podcast. I think that it feels very special. And I couldn't be any more excited, especially with our guest today. And I think we're going to have a little fun, especially, now that it's also a St. Patrick's Day. So I think it's perfect.
Absolutely. So let's get right into it. With that, my name is Javier, and we have problems.
And my name is Jorge in Opportunity. So, welcome everybody to our podcast this evening. Someone once told us that for every problem comes an opportunity. So, my brother and I have embraced that message so much that we made a podcast out of it. Problems do not have to stay problems. You can use what you can to make yourself better. My brother and I bring guests every week to help us deliver any message or gold nugget to hopefully let this feeling grow. Our podcast is about to hit 1 year, as I just mentioned, since it launched. We have a full-time producer who's my son, Israel Nájera, who produces the artwork, music, and the shows. We also now have a spin-off. So we have Monday Morning Quarterbacks, which is, again, it's a spin-off where we allow local business owners to market their products and services. So we're very excited about our future and what is to come. So brother, without further ado, introduce our guest today.
Yes, sir. So we continue to, bring in. This is our second episode where we bring in someone who has decided to, accept a really, really important position, especially with regard to the city. We had someone last week, but today's is we are incredibly honored to be able to welcome today's guest. Not only because of what he has already done for this our great city of Arlington, but what potentially he could do. And we're hoping that the people watching, the people who may not know him, can really get a sense for who this is. You'll get a sense that he's really, really great guy, one of the greatest leaders, a local business owner, an attorney, former U.S. Marine. Well, I think we say once a Marine, always a Marine, but also, and really, really key, former Arlington police officer. So please help me welcome Mr. Jim Ross.
Hey guys, how y'all doing today?
We are doing wonderful, sir. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me. This is so exciting to be on your podcast.
Well, thank you. We, it's a great honor. I've met you a few years ago. We've served on a couple of groups in Arlington, and that's how we first met. And this what I love about this city is eventually I feel like eventually the people who really care about it, eventually we all meet at some point. We
We
all
do.
like you say a lot. We create personal relationships, but Jim, I just hit very briefly on your background because I really wanted to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself to our listeners.
Sure. I'm I'm a strange guy, I guess. That's the first thing your listeners should know about me. I grew up inner city Detroit. The son of a couple who are still together to this day. They're in their 80s now. Uh, my loving parents. My dad worked hard his whole life on the line at Chrysler, and we never really had much money, but I never really knew we were poor people because we were rich in love and relationships. And I had a younger sister, and we just had a great, wonderful life. I graduated from high school in Detroit in 1978. Tried to play a little bit of football in college, but I wasn't near as good as I thought I was. So I ended up joining the Marine Corps. I joined the Marines in the early part of 1979. and I stayed in the Marines till 1983, when I got my honorable discharge. When I got out of the Marine Corps, nobody was really working in Detroit. So I had an aunt in Texas that said, Texas is booming. Everybody's hiring here. I wanted to be a police officer, so I came here, had job offers with other cities, but I loved and fell in love with Arlington. And I waited, and Arlington made me a job offer, and I went to work for the Arlington Police. I worked here for a little over 13 years, about 13 and a half years. I did some really fun things. I was a part of their first full-time SWAT team. I taught self-defense at the police academy forever. I developed Arlington's own police academy. I spent almost 7 years undercover buying drugs for a living. And I finished my undergrad when I was 35 years old. I'm one of those guys that I went to the Tarrant County Junior College as a young adult to try to get my education. I went to UTA. I graduated from Dallas Baptist University. And then at 36, I took my retirement out and paid my way through law school.
Wow.
So got out of law school, hit the ground running, went to work for big firms. I worked with a lady named Erin Brockovich, if you remember that movie.
I sure do.
The real Erin, to this day, is still a great friend of mine. I love her to death. We prosecuted environmental exposure cases all over the country. And about 11 or 12 years ago, I decided to go out on my own, and I did. And it was just me, and we grew that firm of a one-person shop to now a firm of about 40 people, with about a dozen lawyers and offices in Arlington, North Dallas, and West Fort Worth. And I own a restaurant here, and now I'm running for mayor of all things.
Yeah. Well, and I'm glad you said about Erin Brockovich, because that was one of the things that fascinated me personally, because I know the story, and I've never met her, of course, but I have heard her on other shows and other interviews. I just think it's a fascinating story. That was pretty amazing to hear you say, Jim. And by the way, people who may be listening, we invite you to maybe post a comment, a question. We are watching for those, and we'd be happy to ask them while we're spending time with Jim. What I wanted to do, Jim, and thank you for introducing yourself. I heard you say before your team between your restaurant, your law firm, about 100 people, and that plus the amount of time and developing it allows you to now serve as a mayor of a city like Arlington. Can you give us? I wanted to kind of give people a sense of what that entails as far as time. I mean, not all the details, but what are you looking at to be able to serve a city like Arlington?
So if you're elected mayor in Arlington, you make a ton of money. I think it's now up to $250 a month.
That's
you
great.
get to make being the mayor of Arlington.
Love it.
When you choose to serve, whether it's city council or mayor, you don't do it because of a financial gain. You do it because of your love for the city. I'm not the only person that loves this city. So when we make that commitment, we being the city council and the mayor, when we make that commitment, we understand that we have to have the ability to survive without any real income coming from the city. So before I could make the commitment, I had to make sure that my businesses were able to pay me, and I didn't need to work on a full-time basis, because being the mayor of the 46th largest city in the country with over 400,000 people is more than a full-time job. I can't afford to allow my personal businesses to interfere with me running the city. And until I was able to get comfortable with that, I didn't make a decision to get in the race. Once I decided that I can do this, I can step away from my businesses, and come to find out they probably run better without me than with me. But once I was able to step away from them, then I was able to say, now I can commit 110% of my time to the city of Arlington.
And Jim, I mean, obviously your resume is very elaborate, and I also want to thank you for serving this great country as a Marine.
Thank you.
I have a question for you. What exactly triggered you and told you it's time to run for mayor for the city of Arlington?
Well, I was worried because our current mayor, Mayor Jeff Williams, has done a fine job. In my opinion, he's done a fine job with this city. Our city is much better off today than it was nearly 6 years ago when he took office. I was at a fundraiser for one of our city council members, and I just made a comment because term limits had just passed here in Arlington. I made a comment to a friend of mine standing next to me, and I said, what are we going to do when Jeff's term is up? Who's going to take over the city? And he looked at me and jokingly said, well, you're going to be mayor. And I was like, no way. You're crazy. You're drinking too much. You don't know. There's no way I'm going to do that. But the reality of it is, I sat there and I waited for months and months and months for that individual who I could get behind and support the way I support Mayor Williams. And that individual never showed up. I wasn't able to get behind anybody. And then me thinking about not running sort of evolved into me thinking about running. And now here I am. And I said, well, if I can't get behind somebody else, I'm going to get behind me and I'll get after it.
Great. You know, Jim, one of the things that, and we're going to start scrolling your website, for instance, for the campaign. And then I also learned that you have a great YouTube channel, which is really about you giving people the channel is literally called the Arlington Experience. And you're interviewing small business people, true small business people, and exposing, them to your public, who, is pretty sizable. So, can you briefly kind of give us a sense of what a campaign? And I'm doing this because sometimes we don't really capture. We may be indifferent to this kind of election. I mean, we all pay attention to presidential elections and that sort of thing, but maybe not so much in the city. And yet we live here. I mean, the decisions that you and the council, end up making affect us a lot. Can you give us a sense of what a campaign like this entails?
So when you run a campaign like this, you're trying to get a message out to over 400,000 people that listen. I have prepared myself throughout my entire life to take over the helm of the city, to lead the city to the next level. And that's not always easy to do. You have different cultures, you have different age groups, you have different people throughout the city. Arlington is the 11th most diverse city in the country for the top 100 cities population-wise. And it's not always easy to say, listen, I'm the one that's best suited for that. We started our YouTube channel and we started our podcast with the small business advisories, not because of a great idea I had. I have a lady that works for me named Paige who came to us one day and she said, hey, listen, I got this idea. And I said, Paige, it's never going to work. Nobody's going to be interested in hearing what we have to say about these small cities or these small companies.
Right.
And I said, but I tell you what, you run it by the campaign people, and if they like it, we'll do it. Well, everybody loved it, and I sort of half-heartedly entered into this thing.
Yeah.
And then it started to take off like wildfire. And I started to enjoy it because I started being able to learn stuff about businesses and small businesses in town that I never knew before. And until you take the time to sit down with these small business owners and say, how did you get started? Why did you pick Arlington? What makes Arlington so special for you? You really don't have a good understanding of what it takes to be building these businesses. That coupled with the fact that I have built businesses here in Arlington, I have grown to having about 100 employees. That coupled with the fact gives me a unique perspective. So we called it the Arlington Experience with Jim Ross. We've now done, I think, around 35 episodes or so. Just some incredibly wonderful places. And I've learned so much but I wish I could take the credit for it. It wasn't me. It was Paige with that idea.
Well, it's a great idea, and just looking at the YouTube channel, which it's scrolling now. I mean, the Moni's episode, which we all love, Mama Moni's. We all know what that is. Has over 500 views, so it is definitely taken off.
And Mama Javier, and I say it at the beginning of the episode, when I sit down with Mama, those of us who have eaten at Moni's forever, we only know her as Mama.
Mm-hmm.
I never knew her name was Amy. I never ever knew. So when I sat down with her, to that moment, I didn't know her real name. And I was like, Mama, I've only known you as Mama. I think she and I are the same age, but I've only known her as Mama. And she goes, well, I am Mama for all of Arlington. And that family loves the city so much that she really feels like she is Mama for all of Arlington. And when you go there behind the cash register, they have that wall of fame with all of these kids, including a couple of my kids, who are on this wall of fame where they are displayed so proudly of these kids who grew up in Arlington and have gone and eaten pizza and spaghetti and some of the best Italian meals ever at Moni's. And it was just a cool episode.
It really was. And quick story, I went to Mama's for some support for a group that I was with a long time ago, and what was supposed to be in my mind, and I was really nervous actually, but what was supposed to be maybe a 30-minute pitch turned out to be an hour and a half conversation because there's some issues going on with the family and all that. But that's just the kind of person she is, so I totally agree with that.
Just an incredible family. That's what makes Arlington so special. It's not just about the small business. It's not about the entertainment district. It's not about our local government officials, although we have some great local government officials. What makes Arlington special is Arlington understands relationships. And when you understand relationships, you can put your arms around the small business folks like Moni's, like Jay Gilligan's, like Candlelight Inn. You can put your arms around those people and embrace them and appreciate them for what they have done to this city and take care of them, especially during the hard times like the pandemic.
Jim, you told your story about how your podcast came about, and that's where the best ideas come from, right? I can tell you that our podcast, exactly almost a year ago, as I told at the beginning of the show, came from because of the pandemic. As I sit here and look at my brother, I'm not too sure we would be here if there was no pandemic. So I think that's that's it. You just gotta get an idea and give it a heartbeat. Jim, so I listened to some of your prior interviews, and one of the things that you spoke about is how this great city of Arlington has done so well with big businesses, right, and projects, especially like in the entertainment district, but not as well as with small businesses. And as I was telling you off air, I'm from El Paso, and I got to tell you, it's exactly the same. It's no different. I was giving you some examples how some of those businesses have been booming in El Paso. So you mentioned eliminating some of the red tapes. Can you share with our viewers, some of these red tapes to facilitate people establishing small businesses here in Arlington?
So Arlington is a very diverse community. I said earlier we're the 11th most diverse city in the country, and sometimes we can get a reputation of being difficult to deal with if you're that small business. And we have to eliminate that perception. There's two things when you're building a business, and running a big city is just like building a business. You have branding and you have marketing, and you have to make the right brand for your community. Arlington has a brand that if you're big business, if you're the Rangers or the Cowboys or Texas Live or big hotels, that were real easy to do business with. But if you're a small business, it's not so easy. Now, whether or not that brand, that reputation is based in reality or fiction, it doesn't really matter, because if that's the perception, it's real to the people who are feeling that. So what we have to do is we have to make Arlington attractive. to small business owners. We have to make Arlington attractive to those people that have that idea that's been brewing and saying, listen, I'm looking for the right place where I can go start this company, whether it's a manufacturing company or retail company, a restaurant, whatever the thing may be. But we have to make Arlington attractive. So how do we make it attractive? It's not a one-step simple process. We have to make our schools more attractive. We have to make our infrastructure more attractive. We have to better our roadways and everything. And we have to make creating and establishing and main red tape. We create an opportunity for people to come here where a segment of our local government can say, here's what you need to do to get through planning and zoning. Here's what you need to do to get through city council. Here's what you need to do to comply with all the code enforcement issues. Here's what you need to do to get through all the fire department issues. We can help you. We can hold your hand and we can guide you through that process. But it doesn't stop there. For the first time in Arlington's history, I'm going to have stuff available to me as mayor that nobody else is going to have available to them. And that's the fact that in November, our citizens voted to fund our Economic Development Corporation. For the first time, we're going to have real monies that are going to be coming into this city to the tune of around $17.5, $18 million a year. That's going to enable us to help entice those businesses to come here and develop business here in Arlington to help this community grow. Because if we want to revitalize certain parts of our town or our city that need that redevelopment and that revitalization, we have to be able to entice the right companies, bring in the right jobs that people can support their families on, that they can raise their children on, that they can retire on, stay here on, and send their kids to college right here in Arlington. That's what we need to be doing. It's not just a one-dimensional approach. It's a multi-dimensional approach to making sure that Arlington gives us that dream opportunity. And we have more than enough to do that now.
So Jim, if I heard you correctly, you're saying that Jerry Jones and the Cowboys is a pretty big business here in Arlington?
It might be a pretty big business here in Arlington. I'm just saying it might be. Don't get me wrong. I love the Cowboys. I love the Rangers. If it wasn't for us having this ballpark here, we never would have had the NFR here. We never would have had the Rose Bowl here. We never would have had a lot of the games that we're experiencing now here. We have those here because we did what we did to keep the Rangers here, to bring the Cowboys here, to develop Texas Live. And these entities, especially like people like the NFR, love coming here. I mean, they absolutely love it. And we need to keep creating those type of environments. But the real backbone of this city isn't in big business, isn't in the entertainment district. The real backbone is taking care of small businesses.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more, Jim. And obviously, my brother and I are probably a little biased with this, right? So both being business owners and just, working on it as a realtor, I can tell you that I get really excited when you mention a lot of these things, especially with the new development with the EDC and, the advocacy and all that. Man, we could have certainly used that. Still can use it, but it's very exciting to hear all that.
It's really exciting. I have a law firm, I have a restaurant, I have other businesses around, but I know firsthand, being a restaurant owner, what happened to my restaurant when COVID hit last year. I know firsthand what it feels like to have to shut down for a few months and have to lay people off and not be able to afford to do anything with your restaurant. And even when you open back up, you open up in summer when COVID is still going hot and heavy and you have limited folks coming in. We were making a quarter of what we used to make. So I know firsthand what it feels like, but I also know firsthand how responsive this community is and how this community sort of gathered around our local businesses and they started using us more and more and more each month. And this community has now put us back on track to being profitable again. And I the only way I can adequately thank this community is to give back by running for mayor, to make sure that we enable every other business in Arlington to experience what I have had the luxury of experiencing it. And that's the loyalty of Arlington residents.
That is absolutely right, and just a real special, detail about the restaurant Mercury Chop House. The view is spectacular. We don't have a lot of high rises in Arlington, but you are in one, I believe, ninth floor, if I'm not mistaken. So for those who have not been there, the view of the city, because you're facing all the fun stuff, Six Flags and stadiums, everything. You're looking at all that. It's really spectacular. Jim, one of the things that I heard you say in another interview is that in any given day in Arlington, there might be 100,000 students within the city, and that's AISD, Tarrant County College, and UTA, all inclusive. And that part just fascinated me. I've got two college students. One is with TCC, the other one is not. But talk to us a little bit about what your idea is for serving that, sizable population in Arlington.
You know, I look at things like this. I now have 5 grandchildren, and I've come to realize that the decisions I make now in my businesses and my personal life, the decisions I'm going to make as mayor of Arlington, not just impacts what we're doing now, but it impacts our next generations, the one after us and the one after that and the one after that. Our decisions today impacts everybody else down the line. I don't want to leave a legacy of anything other than Jim Ross did the best he could do for his kids, his grandkids, and his community. That's all I really care about is what do we leave everybody? I'm a product of what we have going on here. I went to community college. I went to UTA. I didn't graduate till I was 35 years old. I didn't go to law school till I was 36 years old. And I've been able to become successful, even though I got that late start in life. And we need people to realize that it's okay. It's okay if you're going to Tarrant County College and then UTA and wherever you need to go, because you can be successful if you put your heart and mind to what you want to accomplish. And we need people to be proud about that, not withdrawn from it, not defensive to it, but proud about it. I'm very proud of the struggles I went through to get my education and to develop my businesses and everything else, because it makes me a better person today than I was yesterday. And that's what it really comes down to.
That is so awesome because, one of the things that I try to do when I made the jump into self-employment and business, my business is insurance. One of them is there is some collaboration between the chamber, the Arlington Chamber, and Arlington Schools, specifically with regard to the Dan Dykert Center. There's some trades that are phenomenally available to people, which make people very successful. One of them being the Arlington Police Department, Arlington Fire, and some other things. And there is sort of a small segment that I was trying to be a part of, but I just wasn't ready for it as young as I was in the business. But it is a collaboration to have internships, apprenticeships available in the world of insurance. It is one of those things that requires so little in the way of let's just call it education, licensing, etc., but has so much potential. And I kind of have that. I'm very appreciative that that's the direction you're looking at, because I still hope to come back to that and be able to train and inspire future insurance agents.
Absolutely. Javier, we've known each other for a number of years, and I'm very comfortable in saying that I know that you believe that your success is not measured by what's in the bank. It's measured by your ability to nurture and develop relationships. And that's one of the tremendous things about, for instance, the Greater Arlington Chamber of Commerce. Michael Jacobson has come in and he knows how to develop and nurture relationships with small businesses. That's what makes this community so great. We will pull together and help each other out constantly. I see it over and over and over again with individuals reaching out and lifting one another up. That's what it really comes back to. Being a philanthropist, giving back to the community, all those things. It's not about your achievements, it's about lifting up and giving back. And that's where your real reward comes from.
That is correct. Building relationships, and I heard you say it so many times in the different meetings we've been in the same room together. That is one of your constant messages from the very first time I met you, and that's kind of the message that I hope we can bring, especially to the Hispanic folks who are also in Arlington, that they understand that that's what you're bringing to the city. That it's not just the election process and the title and that sort of thing. You're really here to build relationships with the smallest of businesses, and it's obvious in your YouTube channel, to the big projects, the big stuff. One more point on the young people, if you don't mind. So I'm proud to say that in my house we have 100% voter participation or capacity. My daughters are 19 and 21 now, and then my wife and I. And they both got really involved and, let's just say, passionate about the last two presidential elections. I want to figure out a way for that to continue into the city stuff, the city elections, because they're much more important than the other. They're all important, but the way that affects us, school board elections. What message do you have to that age group? I don't know what we call that generation, but the 19 to 25-year-olds right now.
Yeah, I don't think they're any longer the Generation X. I think the Generation X has grown older now, and I don't know what that makes me because I'm really old. Here's what I'll tell you. I am really, really tired, like I think most Americans are, of the divisiveness that our country has when it comes to politics. I miss the day where you would have somebody like Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill who disagreed on a lot of things. But those two gentlemen would go into a room together and they would talk through their differences and they would come out with a compromise that they both could live with. That day has come and gone. We don't see that type of working together anymore from either side. You see people being critical of one another. So if I was to tell young people the reasons why you want to get involved in local politics is to make sure we don't allow that divisive rhetoric, the divisive behavior to filter down to our local level and impact our community itself. If we want to impact what's going on nationally, the best way to do that is to impact what's going on locally, is to ensure that we're not creating an arena of hate, an arena of divisiveness, that we're doing things to be more inclusive. And I see that happening in Arlington. We are becoming more inclusive. Mayor Williams and the city council commissioned a unity council last year. And the unity council has come back with a wonderful 132-page report, 59 recommendations of some incredibly thoughtful messages on what we would like to implement here in Arlington. That's a great start. And we need to embrace all of our differences. I like to say we're all part of the same race. That's the human race. And if we start treating each other like that, we're going to get a whole lot further in life. And what we're going to learn about each other is there's so much more in common with one another, whether you're Hispanic or African American or Asian or Caucasian, it doesn't matter. There's so much more in common with one another than there is different. And once we realize that, this city, this community, this state, and this country, there are no boundaries on what we're able to accomplish then.
You know, Jim. So my side of things, I've got a 14-year-old and a 16-year-old, and so they can't vote yet, but I can tell you that they were definitely highly involved, with our presidential elections, and there was mixed feelings, and I won't get into it, but at the end of the day, it gave me mixed emotions because I was excited to see them at a very young age learning about what was going on with the country, but at the same time, sometimes you feel like, well, they're highly involved potentially for the wrong reasons. But I think that's where we come in, right? And that's where, as a father, I need to sit down and I have, right, to speak to them about the importance and why it's important and irrelevant to political parties or anything like that. Exactly what you just said. So, Jim, so my brother and I always like to end the podcast with one or two points, and so that we can crystallize for our audience specific to your campaign, Jim, an election for mayor. What would you like to leave the audience with a reason to vote for Jim Ross?
A couple of reasons. One is I may not be the smartest or the best looking or the brightest person running for mayor ever, but I do know how to build relationships. I do know how to create jobs. I do know how to take care of those who I care about, and I really care about the city. So I would love and appreciate that when those people who want to vote research, and you should always research the people that you're considering to vote for, take a good close look at me. Look at my track record. Look at what I've done in the community. Look at the nonprofits. Look at the job creation. Look at the fact that I'm the only candidate to ever run for mayor that was a cop in the streets here in Arlington. I spent almost 7 years undercover buying drugs for a living. Look at the fact that I'm the only candidate who ever's run for anything that has the endorsement of all 4 police associations and the firefighters. I want to do this job as mayor for the only reason that I want to give back to the community that's given so much to me.
And that is I think a great way to. I was just going to say if folks, and they can certainly find you on all the socials and your own website that we're scrolling, but it's evident with your block walks and I mean you're just all over the place, literally just meeting people. There's nothing elaborate or fancy about it. You're shaking hands, you're introducing yourself. You mentioned before, and I've known this, and that's one of the things I really appreciate is you're a straight shooter. What you see is what you get, and I, for one, am really looking forward to someone you with those leadership qualities, continuing the journey of this great city. Which I've been here since 1992, originally from El Paso, but I can tell you that from almost from the very beginning, fell in love with the city and still do. In fact, except for my mother, God rest her soul, if anyone says I'm going to go visit you in Dallas because it's easier to say that, I immediately correct them. We had a lot of trouble when the Cowboys started playing and the broadcasters would say Dallas, but you know what I mean. But Jim, in the spirit of time, and because this is St. Patrick's, we want to really, really thank you for this time. We want to thank you for coming on with us and introducing yourself and letting people know who you are. And I'm confident that you'll learn a lot of votes with our time today.
Well, thank you both so much. I appreciate everything y'all have done. I appreciate you giving me a venue here to talk a little bit about the campaign and what we're looking forward to in Arlington. And God bless y'all for everything you're doing. Thank you.
I'd also like to thank the audience tonight for being with us today. It was very, very fun and exciting to get to know Mr. Jim Ross. Like I said, I watched a couple of your interviews the last day, and it was very exciting. Very good things come, very good things to hear. Thank you everybody for being with us tonight and being with Mr. Jim.
Yeah, we were, Jim, just so you know, we were reviewing tape until about 1 or 2 a.m. last night. We like to be prepared. Thank you, sir. And I'm sure we'll see you around, and, all the best to the campaign.
Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate y'all.
Well, brother, that was a great episode.
Absolutely. I enjoyed it a lot.
Hey, so just in the spirit of the fact that we're in the same room, we decided to play a little trick with technology and add another angle to the podcast, and so people can see. I'm gonna turn around away with that camera. We're literally in the same room, which is very special to us because the length of the show we broadcast in different places. Now people are going to see that I have 14,000 screens. But anyway, I'm really happy we were able to do this, episode 34 for this occasion, and I just love that it was St. Patrick's and it was just a great show. So with that, for my brother, this is Javier. We are Problems,
and for my brother, this is Jorge and Opportunities. Thank you, everybody.